Thank you. Let's put a chair in here.
When we practice meditation, we choose to make time and sit silently. This is what we control. But how do we deal with things we don't control? Meditation reveals that we must let them go. Change itself is the only thing that is constant. The truth is, the future is uncertain.
All right, you
And
too.
things that seem to be assured may not come to pass, and vice versa, for better or for worse. There is not a way to escape this. So while we choose the direction that we want our life to go, we cannot pick everything that happens to us. Meditation shows us that it is possible to live a life that has both direction and ease. It is very important to try to live a wholesome life, but be careful not to demand that others adhere to your path. The journey of life is that each of us must find this mindfulness minute.
Hey.
Ecumenical Group Society of Little Rock. We invite you to come sit with us at edslr.org. Thank you for your time. May all beings be happy and at peace.
Arkansas kids are still feeling the negative educational impacts of the pandemic, even though it was declared over a year and a half ago. New data from the nation's report card shows that 8th grade math and reading scores in the state have remained stagnant since 2019 and lower than the national average. Most Arkansas 8th grade test takers reported not receiving any math or reading tutoring. However, most also said they have access to social and emotional supports and rate their teachers positively. Peggy Carr with the National Center for Education Statistics adds that chronic absenteeism rates, which doubled during the pandemic, are dropping.
So some improvement, but not enough. And this wouldn't be so worried if we not found a consistent and strong correlation between absenteeism and student performance. You have to come to school to look.
Nearly 1 in 3 Arkansas test takers said they had missed 3 or more days of school in a month. Carr notes that some declines in academic achievement are part of a pre-pandemic trend, with students below the 25th percentile still performing lower than their peers 30 years ago. The gap between highest achieving and lower performing students continues to widen. For example, scores at the 90th percentile in 8th grade math rose by 3 points since 2022, while there was a 4-point drop in 4th grade reading scores for students in the 10th percentile. The National Assessment Governing Board's Martin West says the pandemic isn't the only factor driving the scores.
You should be looking at what social media and the rise of this previous childhood is doing for reading habits and reading skills. We know from data that there's been a sharp decline in the share of students who report reading frequently outside of school for fun.
West notes there are upsides and downsides to screens, as technology can be a source of educational enrichment if used appropriately for learning. The nation's report card, mandated by Congress, is the largest nationally representative test of student learning. For Arkansas News Service, I'm Mary Sherman. Find our e-trust indicators at publicnewsservice.org.
At KABF's Home Medical, we're here for every moment that matters. Whether you're grilling up a barbecue masterpiece, creating stunning tattoos, or taking care of everyday essentials, our black nitrile gloves provide the protection you need for cooking, operating, and much more. We also offer protective products like braces and discreet, reliable underwear for those who may be facing life challenges, from postpartum weeks to prostate cancer, bladder issues, or simply aging gracefully. Whatever you need, KABF's has you covered. Choose curbside pickup or have it delivered right to your door. It's your choice, and it will be our little secret. Call us today at 501-663-4744 or visit www.gohhm.com. KABF's Home Medical, protecting you through life's every moment.
When you don't know the plan, seems like it's never enough. and girl, yeah. Seems like you can't make it through. Child, you just stand when there's nothing left to do. You just stand. One last one thing you do. Just after you've done all you can, you just stand and be sure you're not entangled with that bondage of memory. You just stand and you. God has a purpose, yes, God has a plan. Tell me when you've done all you can. And it seems like you can't make it through. Child, you just stand. You just stand. Stand. Through the storm, through the rain, through the hurt, yeah, through the pain. Don't you
Yes, we coming in hot this morning, taking me all the way back to my holy days with Donnie McClurkin singing Stand. He's going to be the source of part of our conversation on today. And I wanted to make sure you heard it all the way through because I know some of y'all know that song just as well as I do. Thank you so much for joining us. You are live right here with Community Voices on KABF 88.3 FM with your host, the Reverend Doctor, but you can call me Denise. And I am excited that we have live in the studio your co-host.
Don't do it. Don't do
your
it.
co-host.
Don't do
I'm trying to
it.
do it like he taught me to do it. Passer. Passer. Toney Orr. Toney, good morning to you. Grand Rising.
Grand Rising to you, Denise. Thank you for that introduction, and I thank all of you for tuning in this morning to Community Voices. Just a quick reminder that KABF is in our first Players Drive of the year. We do 4 Players Drives throughout the year, and this is the first one. And just want to remind you that you can give 3 ways. You can go to www.kabf.org and you can click the donate button while you're there. Become a monthly sustaining member of KABF. Your monthly contribution, no matter how big or small, continues to help sustain what we have been doing for 41 years now. You can also call 501-372-6119. You can give your pledge or donation to our program director, Charles Ray. You can call one of your favorite DJs or hosts on your favorite show and get a pledge, and that number is 501-433-0088. You can send a check of money over to 2101 South Main Street here in Little Rock 72206, and you can mail your pledge in that way. Or if you're just out and about and you want to come by the studio, come by the station, and give your pledge in person to that same address, 2101 South Main Street. We'll make sure you don't leave empty-handed. We'll show our appreciation by, making sure that you leave with a T-shirt, a coffee mug, a hat, an album, or something to show our appreciation. Also, during Pledge Drive, if you are an entrepreneur, you have a business, or you just got some things you want to get off your chest and put on the air, we have what we call Buy Watt. For $150, you get 20 60-second spots. That's 20 minutes of airtime for $150. You cannot, you can't find that nowhere in the radio market or television. You cannot find where you get 20 minutes of airtime for $150. And we also have this special premium that we're doing for $50. You have a bundle. You get a black KABF t-shirt or gold KABF t-shirt with a coffee mug and a ball cap for $50. Separately, each one of these items, if you purchase them separately, you're looking at about, $75, $80. But we're giving it to you for $50. For a $50 pledge, you get this. So just think about it. Continue to listen to KABF, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation this morning.
I have some announcements as well that I would like to make on this morning. And I do appreciate those of you who send them to me to make sure that we are well informed all the time so we can figure out where to fit in. So that we will be a part of the solutions that we need. So the CALS, the Central Arkansas Library System Speaker Series presents Victoria Christopher Murray, the best-selling author of The Personal Librarian and The First Ladies, on tour with her new novel, Harlem Rhapsody. She will be in person. It's a free event at the Ron Robinson Theater on Thursday, February 27th from 6:30 to 7:30. Also, you can shop the CALS, the Central Arkansas Library System's used book sale. It's happening on February 13th from 2 to 5 p.m. It's also happening on February 14th and 15th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that's located at 7773 Sloan Drive in Little Rock, Arkansas. For more information, you can dial 501-918-3090. I also want you to know that on this Friday, February 7th, from 4 to 8 p.m. At the Red and Blue Events venue at 1415 West 7th Street, right here in Little Rock. It's the Day of Empathy, embracing holistic healing on this Friday, February 7th, from 4 to 8 p.m. At the Red and Blue Events venue, 1417 West 7th Street, right here in Little Rock. And then happening today, in just a few minutes, the Service to Humanity, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebratory panel discussion is happening at 10 o'clock. The reception is at 10 o'clock. The panel discussion starts at 11 a.m. The panelists are Wendell Griffin, Agnolia Gay, Sam Staggs, and Mayo Johnson. So these are the announcements that I have to share with you. I really like it when you call me or send me a text or message me or however you get in touch with me to let me know how it went, because I can't show up at all of the events. I know how the events go that I go to, and I share that with you. But if you want to call in, check in, you can even call into the radio station and leave a message. That's fine. So let us know how it goes. We really appreciate your feedback. So those are all of your announcements. Please govern yourself accordingly. I'm in church mode today.
I see.
I'm in church mode today.
Okay.
And so I want to start us with our, we already started with the conversation with Donnie McClurkin singing Stand. And I'll tell you, I think I should give you the tidbit before I tell you why I chose him for this day. But it was very important for me to choose that particular song for today. Oh, I thought I had. Where is the Okay. On January 31st, so when I say for today, I mean, I'm telling you this today, but this was on January 31st in 1964. On January 31st, 1964, Lewis Allen, a witness to the murder of an NAACP activist by a white state legislator, is killed in Mississippi. In 1964, on January 31st, Lewis Allen, a witness to the murder of an NAACP activist by a white state legislator, is killed in Mississippi. He was killed because he dared to speak up for what he saw, because he dared to stand firm and do what was right, regardless of the consequences. He died because he was unafraid and unapologetic to do what some people call speak truth to power, and it cost him his life because he was not willing to stand back and watch what was happening, see what was going down, and do nothing. Everything within him compelled him to come forward and to say what he saw, because that is only right. And we can all take a lesson from Lewis Allen on today. Hold on, I got a caller. Caller, you're live on the air, KABF at 8.3 FM. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, because it would take the time to say that candy.
Okay, I sure can. Can I repeat the time and events for, did you hear me say repeat the time for what now? Let me just repeat all the announcements because I can't remember which one, because I couldn't hear very well. Could you hear? I couldn't hear very well. So let me repeat the time for the announcements. Okay, so there's an announcement happening today. Let me get back to it. Let's see where it is in all these pictures. Right here. This might be the one. So the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebratory panel discussion is happening today. Service to Humanity is what it's called. The reception starts at 10 a.m. The panel discussion starts at 11 a.m. It is free and open to the public. The panelists are Wendell Griffin, Agnolia Gay, Sam Staggs, and Mayo Johnson. Oh, but I forgot to tell you that it's at the UAPTC Charts Theater, the Center for Humanities and Arts. That's at Pulaski Tech, and it's on Scenic Drive.
3000 West Scenic Drive.
3000 West Scenic Drive in North Little Rock. Service to Humanity. It's happening today. The reception starts at 10. The panel discussion starts at 11 a.m. I do hope that that is the announcement that you were asking about. So when I heard the song, when I was listening to the song Stand, I heard it the other day, and I was reminded of my own walk. I'm reminded of my own journey in, around, and through, and out of now the faith of my childhood, which is Christianity. And Donnie McClurkin sings this song talking about how important it is for us to stand and do nothing after we've done all that we can, after we have prayed and cried, after we have gone through the pain, after we have suffered, after we have dealt with whatever it is that life has dealt with us. All we have to do is just stand and watch the Lord see us through. Because after we've done all that we can, the only thing that is left for us is to stand. And that is the message that he has for us on today. Now, because of my roots, even though I don't agree with him anymore, I can't help but feel that song way down deep in my soul. I love how genuine he is, and I love how authentic he is, and I love how transparent he is, never mind how gifted he is with his conviction about all we have to do when it's all said and done is just stand and watch the Lord do it for us. And so if those are your convictions today, I certainly understand them. I used to be right there with you, no judgment at all. However, especially in light of this being Black History Month and our first Tuesday in Black History Month, I want to offer a suggestion to us. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm sick and tired right now, already, with this new administration that has come in, I'm already sick and tired of people talking to me about how afraid they are, about how worried they are, about how scared they are about what's about to happen to them because of this new presidential regime that has been voted in by the people. Let me just remind us that the people voted him in until it's proven otherwise, because I know there are some of you who are conspiracy theorists who believe that he didn't really win the election, and I'm not going to argue that point. I'm just saying I need to see more information. And so here we are in the first month of February the first week of February of Black History Month here on KABF for Community Voices. And I'm hearing people talk about how afraid they are. And I'm thinking about what Toney McClurkin is continuing to condition us to believe, is that all we have to do in moments like this, when we are afraid, when we are scared, when we are worried, when we are uncertain, is to just stand and just wait on the Lord. I was having a conversation a couple of Thursdays ago, and somebody at the table was a staunch Jesus follower, and they kind of said the same thing. And the question that Deidre asked is, how long are we going to wait for Jesus, right? How long are we going to wait for God to see us through? If it's 2025, and we are still praying, and we are still crying, and we're still going through, and we're still suffering pain, and we're still dealing with all of the stuff that life has taught us, if we are still standing and nothing has changed, I just want to suggest today that perhaps we need to figure out a new course of action, because I don't believe that just standing all by itself is the answer, because for me and for plenty of you who are willing to admit it, that ain't worked. And to continue to do something over and over and over again in the same way, expecting a different result, I've been taught that is the definition of insanity. And so if that is the case, if it is true that we are insane, those of us who continue to stand and wait for the Lord year after year after year after year after year after year after, I can give me a G going after year after year after year, then we need to stop and take a look at ourselves and say, wait a minute, is there, it's a question because you can say no, is there a new way of living into our abundant life? Is there a new way of dealing with what's happening in the world? Can we do more than just stand, as James Allen chose to do in 1964, even if it means that I've got to put my body on the line, even if it means that I just might die, even if it means some kind of harm to me or my family or my community? Maybe my home is going to get bombed. Maybe the church is going to get bombed. Even if it means that, am I willing to say standing is no longer an option? Being scared is no longer an option. Being afraid is no longer the option. What else can we do besides sit back and wait? And I thought about that question a lot. I've been thinking about it a lot because I don't remember the day, but I remember saying to you live on air that I am willing to write legislation for the basic tenets of what it means to live. I don't even want to say live free, but the basic tenets that we need to live as humans. I remember saying that it was 6 tenets that I wanted to write legislation about. It was housing, it was education, it was transportation, it was food security, it was employment, and it was reparations. And I told you that I am willing to do that. I have no problem with it. And I got to work. I was doing my research. I was putting everything together, and I just I couldn't move forward with it. And the way that my spirit works with me is when I don't feel like I can go forward, I don't go forward, because I got to stop and listen and ask, why can't you move forward? And it finally dawned on me, Denise, why would you write legislation for this legislature in Arkansas? Why would you write legislation about the basic tenets of living as human for this legislature to vote on, when you already know that you are up against a Republican trifecta whose last concern is me, especially as a Black person living as human in this state, and they have aligned themselves with the regime that is in now that isn't concerned about it on a federal level. Why would you take the time to do that, expecting them to pass a legislation when you already know it's insane for you to even think that way? you're right, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not writing legislation, but what I can write is a way for us to move forward rather than just stand. And so I was thinking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. because he has these 6 principles of nonviolence. And so I'm kind of stuck on that number 6. And so what I want to offer to us today is a new way of thinking about dealing with life where we're not on the defense all the time, just waiting to see what they're going to do to us, worrying about what's coming down, when the next shoe is going to fall, when the hammer is going to drop. But I've been taught as well, because I've got 2 coaches in my family, that the best defense is a good offense. And so I want to offer to us this day an offensive strategy for how we can move forward, not just within the next few years, but even beyond. That's what I want to talk about today. But let me just pause because I've been talking for a minute.
Oh, wow. There's a lot in this, a lot. Just listening, there's so many parts to this. The first part that I want to mention is that I do agree. There has to be an offensive way for us to move forward. It has to be an offensive way for people to move forward to better humanity, better services, better legislation, just better in a humane way. It has to be a way forward, and being on the defensive all the time, being on the defense all the time, it gets tiresome. It gets heavy. It gets it weighs you down. So at some point in time, you have to say, okay, let's go on the offensive. When I think about the song, and I think about Mr. Allen and what he did, when I think about the song and I think about what he did, you know, I put myself in. I try to find myself in the story, in somehow, some way. I try to find myself in it, and I started thinking about. I started thinking about those things that I had to stand. At the end of the day, I had to stand, and I had to make some decisions. Part of our faith, whatever it may be, whoever it may be, whatever it may be, part of that faith is to believe that there's something bigger than me. There's something greater than me. And in that greatness, or in that thing, that entity that's greater than me, I have the faith and belief that no matter what, if I stand on this principle, if I do everything I need to do and it still doesn't work out, that something is going to happen. My faith tells me that something's going to happen. And I think when we look at our lives, at some point in time, we all have stood because we thought it was nothing else for us to do. We have done everything, and then somehow, some way, it may work out. It may not work out the way we want it to work out. It may not look the way. It may not happen the way. But in some way, it works out. And so, I think that's something that we all have to look at. And it goes back to something I always said. One of the things that is so difficult is, how do you get the personal, who you are, to blend in with the collective that wants to do something? And that's different. That's difficult for people at times, because they rely on what is going on with them personally, and sometimes they forget about what's going on the outskirts of their lives, or what's going on around them. And it has to be a way that you have to bring both those factions together to truly move offensively into a realm of complete humanity.
Well, I think that one of the ways that I really want to drill down on in terms of the suggestion that I'm about to offer is that we don't have that we don't share the faith that you just defined, that you just explained to us. Because when my faith doesn't say that I just stand and somehow, some way, something is going to happen. That's not what my faith says. My faith says it happens because I make it happen. It happens because all of the work is happening in and through and around me, because I'm the one that has the power. Because even if you look at a principle in the Bible, it says that you've already received everything that you need. You've already received in order for you to be who you were created to be. So I don't just stand and I'm looking around wondering, how did this happen? What? Oh my goodness, I'm surprised. No, it's because I'm doing the work. I'm putting in the work. I'm taking care of everything that has to be taken care of. And then I know what's coming down. I know what I can expect. And then I share in the glory or the demise of whatever the expectation is. That's just like when we talk about going to the legislature. Those people who are Democrat in the legislature right now, you already know that you don't have the power in the legislature to do the things that you want to do. And so what I'm depending on you to do is not pretend, not to try to act like you get ready to get a whole bunch of stuff done, but because you already are aware of the situation and circumstances, how can you work with them? And you can work with them to mitigate the harm, because we know that harmful things are happening and they're going to be extremely harmful. How can you mitigate? So you are still at work because you have the power in your hands to do that. And so as I'm talking about this campaign that I'm pushing forward, as we're launching it today, that's the posture that we have, that we're not wondering what's going to happen, but we are the ones with the power, believing that I'm not waiting on God, but I am God. Let me tell you what this black man said the other day. First of all, let me thank Don Jeffrey for hosting that community safety meeting on Sunday night. It was from 6 to 8 at the Village. I didn't even know there was a place called the Village Place on Arch Street. I think it's 2718 Arch Street. BJ is the Black Woman Executive Director. I just learned all of that. That's another reason why we have to pay attention to the announcements. So thank you for that, Dawn. But there was a young man in there whose name was Davion. And at the beginning, Dawn said, introduce yourself, say your name and your pronouns. And so, well, no, she didn't say, we didn't all go around and do that. But if you wanted to talk, if you wanted to say something, please say your name and your pronouns. And so he wanted to share. He shared a lot. He wanted to share. And he said, my name is Davion. And there is no place that I've ever been where anybody has asked me to share my pronouns. But if that's what we're doing in here, okay, let me tell you what my pronouns are. They are King, God, and Lord. I said, what you say? I had to write it down. If you want to know my pronouns are King, God, and Lord. So we are the ones who have to be the power in the places that we are that need us the most. And so what I'm offering is this campaign, this force, this building of a nation that I'm calling Build Black. And it is taking those same 6 tenets that I was going to offer to the legislature before I rethought that and had a better understanding, to say we're going to take these same tenets and we are going to ground ourselves in this way of being as an offense to what is happening around us. This in no way means that we're not paying attention to what's happening around us. This is in no way suggesting that we can just ignore it and pretend like we are not living in the world. That's not what it means at all. But how are we going to be? How are we going to exist? How are we going to survive? How are we going to thrive? How are we going to build? Or shall I say continue to build? Because there are people doing this work already. And I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you so that we can figure out how to just expand on the building. But it's called Build Black. And it's taking those same basic tenets, but I'm expanding them. So when I talk about the tenet of housing, what I'm calling it in Building Black is sanctuary. Because it's more than just about having a roof over your head. When we are moving in this way to build a nation that I'm calling Build Black, we're moving in a way so that we are no longer renting, period. We want to move as a nation so that home ownership is the goal, not just a roof over your head, but home ownership is the goal. So we are moving from renting to owning. Those of us who are already owners, then we are moving from, and when I say owners, I'm talking about those of us who are still paying a mortgage. And so we're owners and we have a mortgage, then we want to move from having a mortgage to outright owning the house, where we no longer have the mortgage. And then once we're able to free up that money, then we can make sure that we are buying the houses that are in our neighborhoods that are dilapidated or that are falling down on our elderly, so that we can help them to live in a better space. And then we're talking about buying up property and buying up land, just like the gentrifiers are doing, so that we can make sure that we are creating a beloved community that's rooted in this notion, this vision, this manifestation of building Black. So we're calling it sanctuary because it's more than just a roof over your head. It is a vision, it is a movement, it is a reality that we can live into if we just focus on what it means, the importance of home ownership. And so that's the first tenet. It's housing, but it's called sanctuary.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that should be, that's a great tenet. That's a plan. That's something that should be done. And that's one of the things we should be fighting for, because, as I said before, it falls in line with humanity. That's just humanity. That's just people looking out for the humanity of the people around you. And I think at some point in time, when we, and I do agree with you, I heard while we were in fellowship this past Sunday, one of the things that was said is that we are the miracle. When we are looking for miracles, we are the miracle. You know, we are the miracle to build better housing. We are the miracle to create healthcare. We are the miracle that we can show up when someone is standing and they feel like, I don't know what else, what else can I do? You know, and when I said earlier about you're waiting on, when you talk about something bigger than you, that something bigger than you may be your neighbor, may be that person who steps in and says, hey, I got you. You know, you can call it, well, you know, God showed up or Allah showed up. But in reality, I showed up. Going back to something you said, Denise, I showed up because I have the power and the resources to show up for you in this moment. You have been standing, you have been struggling, you have been waiting, and now here I am. I think what happens sometimes is because religion has thrown everything off, and inhumanity has thrown everything off, is that when somebody shows up with that power, a lot of people will either doubt it, they're afraid to step into it, or they don't believe it, or they say, oh, it's just, you know, you're just going to do me like everybody else has done me. And those are some things we have to get away from, that we have to be able, you know, if you step to your neighbor's house and say, hey, I see that your house is falling in. I see that you need a new roof. Here I am with the resources. I don't want anything from you. The only thing I want is once I put these resources into your house, you don't owe me anything. But now, what I would like for you to do is what I did for you. Now you go be the miracle for the neighbor beside you and do the same thing. And I think that's one of the things I think what I'm hearing is what this is something that you are saying that we should do.
Well, I guess it depends on the situation, because if you're an elderly person, then no, I'm not expecting you to do anything.
Right, of course.
Receive, right? And so it could be it's situational. But you do bring me to the second tenet. The second tenet is education, only we're calling it culture and legacy. And so what we're doing is we are informing and educating and pouring into people the knowledge that they need around what it means to have sustainable storytelling, right? And so we're telling the stories of what it means to be human in this world. So we have to talk about history, but we're also telling the stories of where we are now in our reality. And we're talking about stories in a futuristic way, because we can't just keep talking about, I know people talk about we got to know the past so we won't repeat it in the future. Yes, we have to know it and we have to live in the present, but we also have to make sure that we recognize, we name, and we manifest our future, because life, this is not all there is to life, what we're doing right now. So this is about educating our children. It's about educating our community. It's about teaching them all of the things that they need to know, the things that they are not being taught in school. So yes, this is about teaching math. Yes, this is about teaching civic engagement. Yes, this is about teaching logic and reason. It's about teaching trade skills as well. It's about teaching us what we need in our hands and in our minds, so that we can feed ourselves the knowledge that is going to help us move forward in building beyond what's going on in front of us. Because this kind of building, this kind of sustainability that we're talking about when we're saying build Black, it helps us to divest from the systems, because part of our problem is we are finding ourselves complicit because we have no other choice. We have no other choice but to work this particular job because it pays me this particular amount of money to pay for this particular kind of house that I decided to buy because I was making this kind of money. And so now if I say I want to divest from it, that means a whole lot. That means I got to give up some of this money. I might have to downsize my house. I might have to do all of these things that I don't want to do because I've been working my whole life to get to this point. So now I'm stuck in the system. And so what we're trying to do is say, well, we're going to educate us around what we need to be rooted in wisdom, the wisdom of knowing that there is life beyond the system. And how do we know it? It's because our ancestors taught us. They were not allowed to be a part of any system, and yet they built Black. And when I say Black, I'm talking about every member of the African diaspora. I'm not just talking about Black folks the way I see myself. But they've shown us they were outside of every system, the system of marriage, the system of relationships, the system of banking, the system of schooling, the system of employment. They lived and built outside of those systems so we can do the same thing. So learning that, getting the education, teaching the wisdom and the knowledge around those things, that's the second tenet that we're calling culture and legacy. Legacy because we're hoping, I believe it. I'm actually not hoping. I believe it. I know that it can be done, that we are also making sure that we are educating in a way that those behind us, our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, will already be set up in ways we were not set up with, because we were still trying to work through and navigate the systems that plague us. So that's the second tenet. The third tenet is about food security, but what I'm calling it is preservation. So the first tenet, housing, we're calling sanctuary. The second tenet of education, we're calling culture and legacy. The third tenet of food security, we're calling preservation. Because it's preservation, it's beyond just, again, saying that we have enough money to go to the grocery store. It's beyond saying that we have a grocery store in our midst. It goes to the point where we're saying, hey, what are the ways that we can not stop depending on the grocery store? What are the ways that we can work together as a nation to make sure that we have gardens, not just a community garden, if that's part of the conversation, but we have individual gardens, and that we are bartering and trading on those gardens, as well as, say, the practice of buying a whole animal and getting it slaughtered. And then you taking every piece of that animal, from the rooter to the tutor, every piece of it, even if it's parts of the animal that you don't eat, you take it and you keep it and you freeze it so that you can barter and trade with it. Because again, the goal is to divest from these systems, to not be so dependent on, to get out of the posture of being in the defense, but going on the offense to say, I already have a year's worth of meat in my freezer, and it has nothing to do with what you've got on the shelves in the grocery store, because anyway, we can't depend on what you're feeding us. We already know the statistics around how much processed food we're eating in America. And so this preservation goes beyond just saying, I have that there's a grocery store in my neighborhood. It's saying we don't even need the grocery store, because we have come together to build a nation that feeds each other in different ways. The fourth tenet is transportation, but I'm calling it passage. I'm calling it passage because I couldn't help but think about, whenever I think about passage, I think about the transatlantic slave trade and that passage. And so I want to think about that because remember, this conversation about building Black, it is rooted in our history. It considers and is informed by our present, but it also has an eye out for our future. And so we have to, I have to keep and hold my ancestors safe. And so we're talking about with transportation, we're talking about going from public transportation to individual transportation. So these are all transitional ideas that wherever we are now, there's a way out. Wherever we are now, we don't have to just stand there and watch the Lord. There is a way out where we can help people move and get off of public transportation so that they have individual transportation. And we want to make sure that we're moving through the social and political landscape. So this passage away from being so caught up in politics, being so caught up in who's in office, being so caught up in that. Yes, we might have to participate in voting as members, as part of our civic engagement, but we are not dependent on them in the government to decide for us how we are going to live. We will be in charge of that. We will be in control of that because we are navigating outside of that system, building Black for our own selves. And that's the fourth tenet, that is transportation. And then the fifth tenet is employment, but I'm calling it position. Right? What position are you in right now as it relates to how you obtain your finances? Right? So those of us who, your job and employment, you're working in corporate America, how do you go from being in corporate America to working for yourself? Like, how do you do that? Is it possible? Are you willing to do that, to move from corporate America to self-entrepreneurship? Is it possible? And those of us who are already entrepreneurs, how do we expand so that we are not just building our own brands and with one business, but we've got an empire. We've built an empire with our brand that also allows for us to give kickstarts to people so that they can build their brand into an empire. How do we get to the point where we are divesting from corporate employment into self-employment in a way that competes with corporate America, because we'll be on our own system? And so how do we do that? How do we look beyond just going to a 9-to-5? How do we look beyond just trying to make six figures? How do we look beyond what it means to have our name in business lights or to be on the Chamber of Commerce? How do we look beyond that? And then the final principle is about reparations. And I want to continue to say that reparations are not money that's not money that we're begging for. That's not what reparations means to us, those of us who are part of this nation to build Black. That's not what reparations means. It does include money, no doubt about it. But reparations for us looks beyond just the monetary value. And we're talking about land. We're talking about education. We're talking about credit. We're talking about all of those as forms of reparations. And this is just the beginning. Like there's plenty more conversation to have around this. I'm just giving you the beginning of the conversation. And so reparations, we are trying to move beyond just asking for money, not even asking for money, but fighting for what is ours, claiming what's ours, but looking beyond the monetary. So those are the 6 principles of purpose. That's what they're called, the 6 principles of purpose that are grounding us in building this nation called Build Black. It's housing, education, food security, transportation, employment, and it's reparations. But what we're calling it is sanctuary, culture and legacy, food and financial security, passage, position, and reparations. So those are the 6 principles of purpose. And we're asking you to consider if those are principles that you think you can align yourself with. Because if so, we are ready to invite you to our first meeting, which is going to happen on Thursday, February 27th. It's going to happen on Thursday, February 27th at 7 o'clock. Now, you're not going to get the address yet because there are a couple of steps you have to take before you can actually get the address to where we'll be. And the other step, the first is asking yourself, is that something I can align myself with? So far, if you say, yes, I can align myself with that. Okay, well, let's talk about the 6 positions of engagement. Because if you're going to build Black, You have to have a lane that you are working in. Everybody can't work in the same lane. Everybody can't do the same thing. We're not even asking you that. We are depending on your gifts and your talents, your individual gifts and talents, to put you where you can thrive, where you can shine, where you can do your thing. And so there are 6 positions of engagement that you can ask yourself, can I fit in here somewhere? The first one is boots. That's what we call them, the soldiers. We call them the foot soldiers. And we're talking about people who are ready to be armed, people who are ready to fight with artillery, people who are ready to wear armor. So you're going to be buying, you're going to be practicing, you're going to be teaching other people how to shoot, like all of those things. So we've got foot soldiers that are actually willing to be armed and ready to defend the community. Not to go out and kill white folks. I'm not thinking about white. If somebody else asks me what I think about Donald Trump, I think I'm going to have a fit. I am not concerned about him. I'm concerned about us. The other position of engagement is called suits. So these are the people who are going to be gathering all of the resources that we need from whatever entity there is, gathering them as a legislator, gathering them as a banker, gathering them as someone in a community leader, gathering them as a youth member of the youth at school, like wherever we get resources from, financial resources, human resources, supplies, like all the resources that we need, you would be working in that area. So you would be a suit. Another position is a mouth. The mouths are those people who serve as our liaisons. So those are people like me who have been taught to move in and out of different situations. No matter where you go, you can have the conversation. You can get the information that you need. You can share the stories. You are just moving in and out of different spaces all the time because you are one of those. You are our liaison. So you're talking to us as part of the nation, and you're even talking to people who are not part of the nation, but you're gathering information that we can use, and you're giving information that people may need. Then there's also the position of the minds, and these are our griots, these are our storytellers. These are the people that are keeping us rooted and grounded in the information and the knowledge that we need for such a time as this. I know that we all need to learn more about our history, but we don't have time to go all the way back to 1619 and before that to bring everybody up to what's going on with us as Black folks. We don't have that kind of time to build this nation. That will always be on the table, but we're talking about storytellers who can recall those historical or contemporary or futuristic stories that help ground us in the now of what we're trying to do as strategy, as tactics to make this next step towards being on the offense and not on the defense. We also need the hearts. The hearts are those people that are recruiters, because we always need people to build. We always need more and more people building with us in the nation. So those people who are hearts, those are the people who can change hearts and minds. Those are people who can put their finger on the pulse of another person and pull out of them that which they need, and then offer them the solutions, which would be being a member of our nation. And then there are the hands. The hands are those people who are actually going to do the work. We're talking about building houses, you're going to be building a house. We're talking about getting a garden, you're going to be tilling the soil. So these are people who actually have their hands on the plow, because that's their gift. Their gift is to work with their hands. So there are 6 principles of purpose, and then there are 6 positions of engagement: boots, suits, mouths, minds, hearts, and hands. Do you see yourself fitting anywhere in that? If so, then we're inviting you to this first meeting on February 27th, which is a Thursday at 7 p.m. And you'll get the address as we continue to learn more about you. Let me pause because I've been talking a lot.
Just listening to it, those are things that the 6 tenets, the positions, those are things that need to happen to move forward. And I know you were talking about don't have time to go back through history to bring people forward, but
not do everything. I said we don't have time to do everything.
But I do encourage people to understand this. The system that we live in is a system created to oppress. It's a system.
Hold on just a minute, Tony. Hey, caller, you're live on the air, KABF at 8.3 FM. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I've been on call you guys.
Okay.
Y'all, we've been talking about building wealth here in Little Rock. Black man, you how the building was in Little Rock, especially in real estate. The state of Little Rock gonna steal your property from you. Now, I come down and talk to Mr. The man, what's his name?
Tony, Charles.
Toney, yeah. I come to Toney and talk to him. Little Rock, the city's board of directors done stole red hundreds of thousands of dollars from me by stealing my property from me. I took sick, and then people done stole my property, and I'm not able to fight them.
I believe you. So you came to talk to Tony, and you looking for solutions? Is that what you're talking about? Hello?
Ma'am?
Are you saying you're looking for solutions? You came to talk to Tony about how they took your house? Is that what you said?
Yeah, they've been stealing black people's property for years and years. Toney Orr.
Yeah, I believe it.
And then they tore my property down. They tore my property down, and the requirement of tearing the house down, the house supposed to have at least about 25% of decay, rotten and broke down. My property didn't have none of that, and I got pictures. Photograph of the property they tore down and didn't have no decay in it, and they went in there and tore them down. Over there, what they doing all this building at? Over there in right off 17th and Commerce, back up in there. I had property back all up in there, over by the government mansion, over there right off 12th Street. That people went on and stole my property. And the land was hundreds of $1,000s by itself in some places.
I believe you. I don't doubt you at all.
And y'all get them people up in the city like the man over there, Ward Warren, and y'all won't ask them people no tough questions. And then when I call them trying to get in, they ask them why they doing all this, and I can't even get in.
I believe you. I promise I believe you.
And what can y'all help us with? I know I've been listening to y'all for years and years on the radio. Mm-hmm. We hadn't gained and done nothing. We hadn't produced no process. We hadn't made no progress.
And that's why we're offering this. That's why.
To talk. I want action.
I agree with you. So I'm getting ready to give you a number. Stay right there. I'm gonna hang up the phone, but stay close to the radio so you can hear this number, so I can give it to you so that we can talk and we can figure out if we can get some help to you. Stay right there. Thank you for calling. Yeah, I feel the same way. That's why I was like, Denise, you said you were gonna do this. You talking. I agree with you. It's time for us to move, but we have got to move offensively. We cannot move deep. We cannot continue to wait for them to do right by us. The caller just outlined not all of the things, just a couple of the things that have been done, that people have done to him. The system of white inhumanity has done to him, and without any recourse. We're not living in that day anymore. We are moving beyond that. We are gonna be sustainable. We're gonna be on the offense, and we're gonna be self-sustainable. That's what the goal is, to divest from these systems where we are dependent on them doing right by us, trying to make the right decisions for us, knowing that is not their end game, knowing that is not their goal. We're building a nation that moves beyond this system into something else. And so I want to give you this number because we only need 6 people for this first meeting. Oh, no, we don't need 6. We already have 1. And so we need 5 people for the meeting. I'm going to give you this number. I'm not using my regular number. I got another number just for this conversation. 501-503-2988. 501-503-2988. That's the number to call to see if you have any questions. Let me answer questions. Let me give you more information. Let me remind you of the 6 principles of purpose. Let me remind you of the 6 positions of engagement to see if this is something that you can align yourself with, so that you can see if you want to show up on the 27th of February. 501-503-2988. I'm waiting on you 5 people to hit us up. I cannot wait to build Black with you. Thank you so much for joining us for the, I was going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining us for Community Voices, where we are live most of the time right here at KABF 88.3 FM. Your girl Lola is sitting by ready to get you started with Jazzy Tuesdays, and she always starts with the women. So I'm going to get us started with India R. Reed singing I Am Not My Hair. I thought about it because if this man had touched my head one more time last night, it was going to be on and popping up in there. I am not my hair. You don't get to touch me. You don't get to define me by anything that is external to who I am. Listen to these words, and we'll see you on Thursday.